Hello, and welcome to What We've Learned. It's another episode in Series 3, Leaders and Pioneers, brought to you by us. Us, myself, Steve Kemish, and her, Shane Redding. Hello, Shane Redding.
Hello.
How are we today?
All good.
All good, all good. Excited, but how possibly can we be excited, Shane? We've locked in a brilliant, brilliant leader, but in the boring world of B2B marketing, Shane.
Now, that is so not true, as you well
Well,
know.
Am I being provocative, Shane? Is B2B marketing boring when Richard talks about it?
Absolutely not. We are in for the most exciting session. I mean, here's a man who, in his various roles in B2B marketing, has had to tackle his organisation being hacked for millions, triads, kidnapping. I mean, it's not your normal B2B marketing job description, is it, Steve?
It certainly isn't. B2B is not boring, and this episode will be far from it. We chuck in the world's greatest explorer, Shane, at some point as well.
We do indeed, but
Of
don't want to
course.
spoil that.
No.
But Richard Fitzmaurice, who's joining us today, is Senior Managing Director, Global Marketing and Comms at the Intertrust Group. It's a global role. He has also got some non-execs, including one for Try Digital Learning. He was previously Chief Marketing Officer at TMF Group, and as he will share with us, had quite a long career, starting, in fact, as a graduate with BT, and the benefits of grad schemes come through too.
Yeah, definitely. Lots comes through in this one. So, without further ado, let's bring in Richard Fitzmaurice.
Well, welcome, Richard. Really happy you can join us. I know you're a very busy man indeed. Your role as Senior Managing Director for Global Marketing and the Comms team at Intertrust Group. So thank you for sparing the time.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me. This is my first ever podcast. So you have to be very gentle.
We'll go very gently, Richard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, sort of my first sort of kickoff, I'm intrigued. We've known each other quite a long time, but about that your role is in your title as Senior Managing Director, but how different is that to being a CMO, or is it in fact the same thing? And what exactly do you do at Intertrust Group?
I'll be honest, I consider it exactly the same thing. So I was CMO of TMF Group for a period of about just shy of 7 years. We went through an IPO process, and a week before we were due to actually list on the London Stock Exchange, a private equity group came in and said, you know what, hold all the excitement, here's an offer, we'll buy you. I stayed for about a year or so afterwards, but as with all new ownership and new management changes, it felt time was right for a change. So I took a year or so to do some personal projects, do some consultancy, and then Intertrust Group came along, invited me for a chat, probably a month or so before the recent pandemic started, and said, how would you like to do it all again? How would you like to go into a global company? We're in 34 countries. We've got about 3,500 plus employees around the world. We do specialized administration services. So if a large multi-billion fund requires administration, we're your people. If you're a large multinational corporation with entities all around the world, we can help you manage them and keep them compliant. If you're in capital markets and you need help administering a loan, we're your guys. And if you're a high net worth individual worth 50 million plus and you need help managing your investments all around the world, you give us a call. But I was invited in to take marketing to the next level and really start generating pipeline, which for me is the key number one metric for all things marketing.
Absolutely. So if we rewind a bit, Richard, I'd be interested, because looking at your education, it looks to me that actually marketing was a plan from a fairly early age. You've got a degree that business, but with marketing. And
I wondered where you was going to go there. I thought you was going to say, yeah, your education's quite normal.
No, not at all. But in fact, part kind of the opposite was where I was going, is that often you meet marketing people, senior marketing people, all levels, that marketing's not necessarily where they were going to start out. So you see quite a different path. Whereas for you, it feels like, it was something that, whereas I might have thought I was going to be an astronaut or something like that at an early age, and then found myself into marketing. When was marketing something that you first honed in on, that you thought, right, that's the direction for me?
There is a bit of a story behind that, and I haven't really told many people this. So during my A-levels, I did computing, I did graphic design, I did business studies, and I did photography. And computing is something I just had a natural talent for. So, the camera's not on, it's not working at this moment in time. But having seen me, you go, yeah, I can quite imagine this guy during his teenage years killing wizards and elves and staying on his computer till 4 a.m. But I had a natural talent for all things computers, all things, coding, C++, MATLAB, that sort of stuff. So, being the first member of my family to even consider university, let alone go, I got such a high score in my A-level computing, and we're talking over, say, 6 or 7 elements, coursework and exams, etc. I think my scores were like 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%, 99, 98. Like it was silly. I was actually offered a paid scholarship to study multimedia, technology and design. And as I said, being the first member of my family to go university, we're very normal. That money talked, and I went, okay, well, we'll do that then. Every little helps in terms of the cost of your tuition fees and your accommodation and your books, etc., etc. But within 2 or 3 months of starting that course, I actually went, you know what, I don't actually want to do this. My favorite topic was actually marketing whilst I was studying, business studies A-level. So I had this horrible decision to make, which was, a very difficult decision. It was like, okay, you either stay away from home, quite a sizable chunk of your costs taken care of, studying a topic you didn't really want to do, your heart really wasn't set on it, or you'd have to go back home, drive into university on a regular basis, but you'll study marketing. And that's what I did. So I think you start university end of September. I think by first week of December, I was actually changed courses, changed universities, and I was studying for my BA honours, business studies with a specialism in marketing. And kind of that's where the journey started.
That was brave. I mean, that's really interesting. You say, to really know at that stage it wasn't right for you. Was there any one particular thing about the course? Did it just not engage you, or how did you know it wasn't right, Richard?
I was sitting in the lectures and I could do the work, but I didn't want to do it. So like all the topics we were talking about, interesting, but to a point. What I actually enjoyed was marketing and learning about advertising, which is not the same thing. And doing the research and pulling strategies together. And obviously up to A-level, you're doing it out of textbooks and limited case studies, etc. But even with that small exposure to it, I'm much more interested in that. But it was financially, it was an extremely brave decision because, to pay my way on university, it was quite difficult. So I actually not only gave up the paid, heavily supplemented option, shall we say, but I actually had to go and get a job in a warehouse as well. So I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning, doing starting the shift at 6, stopping work at 2, and then doing my coursework afterwards. So yeah, it was quite a time. But now you look back and go, well, how would have life turned out if I didn't make that decision? And I don't think I would be as happy, and I don't think my career would have progressed if I didn't take that decision.
It's very it's not just the the bravery of it. It's the graft as well. It's tough paper round that you had at that point, right? In terms of, you know, working so hard.
Another good reason that the camera's not on.
Don't worry, we're all in good company. There's a reason why we're doing podcasts. But to take that on, and you know, you've almost, you know, the expression, you make your own luck, but I think you've made your own success, Richard, with that kind of approach to things. And I wonder also, I mean, at the time that you were doing that degree, quite how much of the marketing was digital? I suspect back then it was coming into things, but not in the way it is now. But I just wonder whether that computing passion has served you well through career, in terms of, because so much of marketing has become digital, that you've got that logic or technical understanding that digital marketing today often needs the art and the science together. Have you found that served you in good stead to get technology when it comes to your marketing career?
Yeah, I'd say so. Of those 4 subjects that I did at A level, I can kind of see how each subject's influenced me. So you've not only got the computing and the appreciation for the, you know, the zeros and ones, but photography I really enjoyed. Wasn't particularly good at it, I'll be honest. But I enjoyed it. Graphic design, so, you know, design labels and murals and poster campaigns or whatever, obviously only at an A-level level, but still there was an interest and a passion and some natural talent in the area, plus marketing, which I was really up for. And I think having those 4 different perspectives for someone who considers themselves very much a marketing generalist, I'm Mr. Average across everything. I think it's really held me in good stead. I'm able to have an informed opinion across most areas.
I can definitely warrant that it's informed. Unlike me, I can have an opinion across many things. But I think it's very interesting, Richard, that, you know, today you mentioned, and even like your passion clearly comes through for marketing, but you mentioned pipeline, you know, the reason you get up in the morning to drive pipeline, but also as a leader, you know, increasingly we have to sort of be very cognizant of our people and our teams and our culture. And I'm really interested to reflect, because I know you've worked in a variety of organisations, particularly today, and your team as a leader, what the challenges are that you see in terms of running a really great team.
Yeah, especially during what we're all going through at this moment in time. It has been tough, but I'd say over the last probably like 12 or 13 years, my mentality has changed. So 13 years or so ago, I was all about Richard Fitzmaurice, like the individual. I cared about my CV and my progression and getting a step on a housing ladder and getting that promotion and getting the plaudits. Now I completely and utterly cringe at such a thought. You know, I find much more enjoyment out of knowing the team is progressing and we're being successful, and someone's, you know, getting married, or they've just bought their first house, or they've just treated themselves to a new car, or they're going on a holiday, or, you know, their careers going upwards. Hopefully that's within this team, but if not, you know, shake their hand, say thank you very much, and you know, wish them all the success in pastures new, because the world's small, and, you know, hopefully we'll bump into each other sometime soon.
That's very
of, you know, the last. Sorry, Steve.
No, please carry on. Sorry, I was going to say it's very astute of you, but keep being astute, Richard. Please carry on.
Well, I think it's just a question of maturity. I'd say 13, 14 years ago, I had some growing up to do, and, you know, I'm sure I still do at this moment in time. Closer to home, you know, over the last year, I actually joined Intertrust Group on April the 1st, 2020. So it's kind of, you know, walking through the door. Happy April Fool's Day. My name's Richard. Although I wish I walked through the door, because over the since April 1st last year, I've been in the office once due to the pandemic. So started in a, you know, large global company. We're listed on the Euronext. Lots of fun and games that entails. We had quite a disparate marketing team. So without going into details, it was like turning spaghetti into lasagna. We had I think in my second week, so this didn't come up in my interviews or the first week or so, and it was call with the CEO who let slip that we were looking at refreshing our brand identity, and marketing wasn't involved. Marketing didn't own that project.
Wow, who owned it?
Well, the CEO is very passionate and it was absolutely the right project to kick off, but marketing didn't own it. So that was quite an eye opener. Obviously, we did an hour later, but that just gives you an indication of what was going on and the job that needed to be undertaken, and trying to turn spaghetti into lasagna, trying to get our handle on massive, enormous projects in a listed company environment during a pandemic where you can't have a single face-to-face meeting was difficult. And at the same time, people are scared of change and the new philosophies you're bringing in, that new commercial focus. It's hard work. It does keep you up at night. I think I had the first day off of the year in December from joining on that April Fool's Day. But you can't do anything without people. If you can't motivate them, if you can't paint a picture of a better future, a more successful future, and show them that we all those projects that were denied at business case stage previously, we can get through if we try again. It's a hard job. Some people are on the bus, some are not, but you have to try and get everybody on the bus as soon as you can.
That's my astute comment, Richard. I think, as you said, you might position it as growing up, but that reflection, moving away from brand Richard to the team, and to that last point of it's a level of emotional intelligence as well, to recognize, okay, you got to surround yourself with good people but also motivated people. So to your point, if you're going to get the best out of somebody, work out what drives them, their goals are, whether it is get on the housing ladder, as you've talked about, buy a fur coat, a car, whatever it is they want to do. You understand that you can only win if you've got, you want a seat on the bus, but you need to get the right shape of seat for everyone on the bus, I suppose.
Yeah, and you said something good in passing there, which is you got to surround yourself with the best people. So, let's generalize and say 15 years ago it was a Richard show. I'd do as much as possible, put it all through me. Now, absolutely not. Give yourself the best chance of success and give yourself an easier life. Surround yourself with people that are brighter than you. We have now a head of external comms. He's better external comms than I will ever be. She's excellent. We have a marketing ops person that likes numbers and better at them, and everything that ops role entails, better than I'll ever be. The same for the website manager, the same for internal comms, etc. And that just gets you to to success and to results a hell of a lot faster, as well as empowering them to do what they do best. So everyone's a winner in that scenario.
I think you're also being slightly modest here. Obviously, with your maturity has come modesty, Richard, because I know that, without naming names, that you have loyal people you've worked with before who've joined the team. And obviously, because people only follow people and join companies when they trust them and they enjoy working with them. So what's the secret to building? You've obviously said something very important, which I'm passionate about, and other leaders on this podcast mentioned too, about delegating, allowing people to be better at what they can do than you are. But what are the other secrets to unleashing talent and building a loyal team, perhaps that you've learned from other people or other situations on your journey? I'm thinking of a particular submarine, Richard.
Oh, well, I can go if I go to my early career at BT. There were firstly fantastic marketing education at BT. I think it has a lot of similarities with Procter and Gamble and the Unilever, etc. Like a fantastic education I didn't fully appreciate until years after I'd left. It's almost got to the point now where you walk past the office and you give it a salute. For all the good things, there were pockets that, you know, shaped my own personal philosophies to management and marketing. And one of them was, you know, I'm sure like most of us, we've encountered scenarios where you put your heart and soul into a project, you probably put it into a PowerPoint, and you brief your manager, and they scrub out your name and they put theirs, and they get all the plaudits, and none of it comes to you. And that I definitely experienced that at BT. And as I said, I consider myself immature at BT, so you can imagine how much that grated. So like, skip to modern day, I'm the exact opposite of that. I proactively, if it's your work, if this is your project, you do it day in, day out, you've designed it, you're managing it, you're presenting to Exco, you're presenting to the CEO, you're presenting to the board, let me know if you want me to be there. And I think, you know, a lot of the people that have followed me from place to place, it's happened twice now. I've only really worked for 3 companies in my life, but for me, that's a key personal metric. If not only what you do and what you achieve, it's how you do it, and in a way that people are willing to work for you again and really go into battle, roll up the sleeves, then, you know, that means the world to me personally. I don't really care about money and compensation, etc. anymore. It is what it is. Things like that I get far more gratification out of.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the thread of what you've just said there is, if you look at some of the greatest, you know, most successful people, money is very low down on their list. And it would be interesting, I don't know, but whether that might have changed over the years for them, is that, and it almost centers back to your, you know.
It depends on your definition of rich. So I've got a very specific one. So I'm lucky enough to live quite close to a supermarket, and it's quite a nice supermarket. I walk in there and I don't need to look at the price. That's my definition of rich.
That's like classic kind of the rock star interview of, do you know, the price of a pint of milk type thing, is that you're comfortable, I suppose, is that, as you say, you're relaxed about the fact you know you can go in there and can afford it. And it sounds like, from what you've said, Richard, that you've got that humble beginning, that you do recognize the value of things even if you don't know the cost of them. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm common. Yeah, as you can tell from my Etonian accent, I'm from Essex. I'm very much a working class boy.
But as you said, that kind of, you know, the first one to even consider and go to university, and that really difficult decision to go back to that of, you know, look, financially, you can either take the wrong degree but with the right amount of funding, or go the other way around. That's, you know, that's that point. But that's given you freedom, and you've taken the ego out of it as well, haven't you? Is that you know, you're seeing success from your team, and this is a thread, Shane, we've seen a lot through this series, talking to leaders, is how actually modern leaders, at least, recognize that if I can set up a bunch of people to be successful, the success for everyone will come, including myself. That's how it seems to be, and rightly these days.
Yeah. And a lot of credit does go to BT. So, you know, during university, you're just, you know, you're very focused on the next goal. At university, in your final year, you just care about your dissertation, you know, because it's such a major element and such a large weighting from your marking scheme. But, you know, this is where I get lucky sometimes, and my parents say, you know, I've fallen down plenty of times in life, but I've always managed to get up. And during the final year at university, I applied for one job, one graduate scheme. Now, looking back, what an idiot. I got so lucky that I went through, and, you know, BT, I'm sure it's just as good, but back then the graduate scheme was fantastic. And they make you do all psychometric tests and verbal reasoning and telephone interviews and assessment centre over, you know, a day or 2 days in Milton Keynes, etc. Got it, you know, 21 grand a year. I was like, well, hey, showed my mum and dad. I was, you know, framing it. Still got the letter, still got the offer letter, still got the original envelope and the employee handbook that came with it. So I'm very proud of it. but I was lucky to get a place on the BT graduate scheme, and they invested a lot of money in training. And I doubt very much, unfortunately, I imagine that has changed. But I remember one of the HR leaders saying recruiting each graduate costs between 15 and 20 grand. That's how much they spent recruiting us and filtering us down and getting to the final, I don't know, 60 odd of us. And then they'd spend probably same again, training us, putting us on leadership programs and putting us in situations which and I'm a natural introvert, very much so. I'm comfortable with my own company. They put us in horrible situations, and one of them in particular, they took us down to Portsmouth. We stayed for an overnight on HMS Excellence, so an actual active warship, and there were sailors walking around as well. I think there was about 30 of us at a time, crammed into bunk beds, etc. They woke us up at 5 a.m. for PT, and I'm sure 5 a.m. was being kind to the guys from corporate. They made us do PT. They made us run around. They did problems and problem solving that tested all sorts. And one particular exercise that stands out was something called a DREW. And you can YouTube this, and I do recommend you do it because it probably won't make much sense. But that standard for Damage Repair Instructional Unit. So it was a fake battleship that was on hydraulics. And you dress up in a boiler suit with a hard hat. And I happened to be in a group of lads, say like 10 lads, who were the last group to go in. So it's almost as if they turned the dials up. We went into the ship, and at the time I was quite scared of water, so I couldn't swim. Always been, a little bit wary of it, but I'm just naturally a bad swimmer. So I was already pretty nervous. But all of a sudden, the lights go out and it's completely pitch black dark. You're on this fake ship, and they fake hit it with a torpedo. And the whole thing rocks back to forth. And when we're saying it tips, you're holding on for dear life. Otherwise, you're going to, swing to the, the lower end of the fake ship. And out of nowhere, all these holes appear around the room. These super high pressure water jets full of freezing cold water starts hitting you and filling up from the ground up. And as soon as it hits you, your breath is taken. Like I was nervous anyway, but now I couldn't physically breathe. I couldn't get air into my lungs. And okay, the leader goes, right, down you go. Sorry, pardon. Well, you just do it because all the other guys in your group are doing it. So you go down the hatch, and the room below you, which I think was it's like a fake mess sort of area, is flooding, and it's increasing noticeably. Water coming from everywhere, including the cupboard, where to actually fill the hole and stop the water coming in, you had to get one of your colleagues, about 3 or 4 of you, and push them against the water jet because it was so forceful. You needed 3 or 4 of you to push them to even get close to the hole, and bang in with a wooden mallet bits of 2x4 bits of wood to stop the water coming in. And it got to such a point where you could only breathe when the ship was tilted to one side, and then it would also tilt to the other side, and you couldn't breathe because the water, this freezing cold water, was above your head. But that's the sort of scenario that BT put us in to go, okay, how are you going to cope with under pressure? Who's your leader? How are you communicating? How are you delegating tasks? How are you celebrating afterwards? And that was all videoed, which unfortunately we never got given the video. But if you look at YouTube, you'll see a couple of those. So from a leadership point of view, as I say, I didn't appreciate it until years after I left, but thank you very much, BT.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean,
was terrifying as well. I'm looking at pictures right now while we're talking, Richard. I
And-
thought
and
a
I know
leaky funnel
Steve-
in
For Navy
marketing was the
training, that's
problem.
what they do for real.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I know Steve's really empathising with this because without sharing too many secrets, he's also not so keen of water, and so you've got that added fear of survival skills, I suppose. But it's very interesting, that classic graduate scheme exposing you to really high level management training, and it is that those forces training. We've talked to other leaders who went through that sort of training and how it stood them well, because you do suddenly realize that actually you're capable of a lot more than you think you are. Not that I'm sure that you've needed to plug any holes in sinking ships since
I don't
then.
know. I could give you a long list of things I've experienced, and as each one happens, each crisis or each major challenge, it becomes a little bit easier next time. You're a little bit less flustered. So in previous companies, must express that it's not my current employer, but I've had senior managers in jail. I've had exco members die through deep vein thrombosis. I've had employees shot down by missiles just on planes. I've had offices held hostage by triads. I've had global ransomware attacks where they requested Bitcoin, otherwise they'll destroy your computers. All sorts. But each time you go through something like that, the next one gets a little. During that period, oh my God, you don't get time to sleep, and that's where you need those good people around you, because if you're going to try and do everything yourself during a crisis, good luck, because that'll be your only crisis you're ever going to go through.
So they called you lucky at that company, I presume, with all of that. I mean, I thought, Richard, that before listening to you, in marketing, one of the biggest things is to control a leaking funnel when it comes to leads. But this DRIU's got nothing on that, has it? Anyway, listen, let's change the subject slightly, if we may, because some people would have downtime, and rightly you deserve it. But your downtime seems like, amongst other things, logo and legend and spending time with the world's greatest living explorer. Tell us a bit about that. It sounds like a fascinating side project to be working on.
Yeah, so one of my key development areas is actually taking time off. I think it was at PT. It actually became like a HR issue, like, Richard, you must take time off. Just because if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I like to keep on doing it. But as I said, during that period of a year out consultancy, trying to decide what I wanted to do next, I actually felt like scratching an itch, which was, and I'm sure most B2B marketers experiences this at some time. There's always that comparison, B2C is different from B2B marketing. And sometimes in my career, it's always felt like the B2C guys have more fun because, they're dealing with everyday items or services that we find easier to relate to on a human level. So I thought, you know what, I've got time on my hands. Not in any particular rush to go straight into full time again, especially, I've got that reputation of not taking any time off. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna scratch a couple of itches, and one of them was originally starting up a whiskey business with someone I'm very privileged to become friends with in Sir Ranulph Fiennes. And me and Ran knew each other because I appointed him as a brand ambassador for TMF Group many moons ago. We were launching a proposition which was all about helping companies enter new countries, and we wanted a marketing device, a marketing vehicle that we can kind of piggy on the back of. So for him, it's all about the challenge and risk and reward and entering harsh new territories and the benefits of local knowledge. For him, like a Sherpa. Tundu Sherpa is the guy who helped him climb Everest. And from a offer point of view, was helping companies enter new countries, understand rules and regulations, and take those risks and be successful, build the right team around them, etc. And through working together on that marketing campaign, we become good friends. He had a couple of commercial affairs that I helped him either get rid of or make fit for purpose that he could sign, and we became friends. And for that year off, I thought, you know what, why don't we work on something together? And there's no one better for stories than Sir Ranulph Fiennes. You know, what he's done in his life is just, it makes, you know, he's the definition of the word legend. He did the Transglobe expedition between 79 and 82, where he circumnavigated the world on its polar axis using surface transport only. So that took 3 years. No one's ever done it since, and probably nobody ever will. And on that trip, he was telling me a story about the 1730 Club. So, you know, for 3 years, they were together quite a lot of the time on the Bow Ring, which was their ship. And they developed a tradition by accident that 1730, every day, they would meet up in Oliver Shepherd's cabin. And he used to work in the drinks industry, a lovely guy. And they used to toast whatever they had at hand, whiskey, rum, vodka, you name it, to the expedition, to friends, family, and all those that left at home. And I was like, you know, that's brilliant. Let's turn that into a product. So I started calling various distilleries. Some of them humoured me. Some of them did not humour me. Eventually, I found one based in Essex, actually, English Spirit Distillery. So only about an hour from where I live. And we got on like a house on fire. You know, fantastic company. James and Dr. John, the master distiller. And it was those guys, Ran and myself, at Ran's expedition centre, which is basically his old home, on Exmoor. And we were meeting up in front of a fire, and Ran was so nice. He went down to the local shop before we got there and got us some sandwiches and Pringles and stuff. And we were just sitting in front of a fire in his childhood home, you know, talking about the 1730 Club and whiskey, etc. And Dr. John, the master distiller, said, you know what, why don't you actually consider a rum? Rum's tied with adventure and pirates and exploration, and a lot of your history and stories are just around that. So, you know what, that makes sense. And what we did, we sourced wood from some of Rand's favourite adventures, such as date palm from the Oman. So Rand led the expedition for the lost city of Ubar. Then we got Norwegian pine, and then we got Canadian sequoia. Each, you know, represented an adventure in Rand's life, and wood in some part, you know, played a role. When he was in Oman, Rand used to, you know, try and hide his vehicles and actually get some air cover using trees and using woods, etc. And he's just full of stories like that. So we put those woods into the still to influence the colour and the flavour of the rum. And I was the marketer. So,
and no doubt lots of tasting involved too. I really hope so, because that to me would be the pleasure of the job, as well as listening to Ran and all his amazing stories, because, as you say, fabulous storyteller.
And, you know, it's like you're at school again, getting on a coach and going on a school trip. And when you visit a distillery, you know, what actually happens, what's the process.
You went to a better school than me, Richard, if you got to go to a rum distillery as a school trip.
No, maybe swap that for a couple of Roman ruins, but you know, the distillery would have been more fun. But I could stay for hours at that place just looking at the bottling machines. You know, it's just a marvel of
mesmerizing, I imagine.
It's fantastic. But there I was. We'd eventually got to a really good quality liquid, and Dr. John Walters and the guys at English Spirit, you know, essentially the Michelin starred version of distilleries. You know, they're only interested in the best of the best, which aligned to myself and Ram, because we didn't want to take any old liquid and put his name on it. Like, this is this history that's going into this, and you know, for a product to have these real genuine stories. We're not talking Captain Morgan and a pirate, or a made up, you know, Captain Birdseye or whatever. These stories are real. These adventures happened, and we wanted it to be a sufficient quality. But we got the liquid, we then sourced the bottles, we then designed all the labels. I built the website 100% myself. Got photography friends involved. Did deals with Amazon, talking to various airlines, etc. And it's a labor of love. But the origination for me was, can a B2B marketer mix it with the B2C world? I won't say it's easy. I've still got a hell of a lot to learn, and I've certainly had enough, unreplied emails and phone calls, etc. But you know what? It doesn't feel like work when you're waking up on a Sunday and working on a run business that you're lucky enough to be partners with someone like Ran.
So I would urge everybody to look at the website, which is sirranrum.com, because, oh boy, the fact on any drinks website, you have to declare your age. You've had such fun, clearly, Richard, with the messaging and the images that, your consent statement, I adore. I swear to be of drinking age and strong of nerve. Yeah. I love it. I want to enter the site. I mean, what fun.
What an amazing thing. And in terms of just the opportunities, Richard, it's funny, isn't it? I can't imagine when you were that self-confessed supercomputer back at A-level times all the way through to now, if you'd have said to yourself back then, you'll become good buddies with this guy. It's quite amazing how doors open, isn't it? But interesting still is that the thread, because you could have opened the door, but you've got the skill, you've built up that catalogue of skills wherever you've been. And what you've been saying about BT, I can relate to from my client side times, that you don't realize what you know until you leave. And that's one of the important observations in life. And as you alluded to, actually, with the manager, you sometimes just have to let people go. It's their career rather than
sometimes you learn as much from a bad manager as you do as a good one.
Very much so. Yeah, absolutely. But I look back, similar, not the same building, but different building, but for the same reason of, actually, I learned in retrospect many years later, where I was for a number of years, was a business school. It was a PLC company, but I learned so much from it. You're always learning, and it moves you forward. And I wonder if we can kind of pull the loop back to the branding. So Shane's horrified and thankfully kept it polite, Shane, that you're outraged at the fact that the marketing team didn't have the brand control. But that brand, and I just wonder whether the thread around Kiva, because Intertrust and Kiva have got a really interesting relationship, Richard, that stems from that finishing off the branding and the positioning of Intertrust.
Yeah. So, I wonder how much details I can go into. So the brand identity refresh, because I try not to call it a rebrand. I'm one of those marketers. We're not rebranding, we're refreshing the brand identity. So I was very very insistent on that fact. But that was a very difficult project. As I said, close to 4,000 employees, 30 countries. I think we've got 44 offices during a pandemic. That includes office branding on the side of buildings and stationery, etc., etc. And just the sheer number of people that project touched during a period where everyone's a little bit nervous and not quite happy, not being able to go to the outdoors, etc. But as we were closing in on D-Day, and I think we went live in the middle of October, that's when we launched it, we wanted something special to mark the occasion. And I think typically people, sponsor a football team, or, they're looking for a big sponsorship activity, unravel a huge tarpaulin on the side of your HQ with the logo, or project it onto the Eiffel Tower, those sorts of things. But, we felt quite strongly that we wanted it to be a lot more meaningful. And from my past, and it was a random conversation, I thought, okay, well, how about this? From my past, and there's actually my other half, she'd been a big supporter of Kiva, which is a charity that focuses on micro loans. And those loans are, typically on average about $400, but they're made up of increments of $25. So lots of people chip in to help Rosa in Kenya buy the farming equipment that she and her colleagues need to make the most of the next harvest and to make money to send their children to school, etc. And it's very personal stories that you're investing into and getting feedback on the progress. And for us as a company, we help our clients invest, grow and thrive. So wherever in the world they want to invest, or whatever they're trying to do from a business point of view to be successful, make the most of those opportunities to unleash their potential, we felt, what, there's a synergy with Kiva there. And it's not putting a logo on a football team or projecting it on the building, and it's not taking a massive oversized check and writing an amount on it and having your CEO shake hands with another CEO, photo opportunity, press release, done. It's actually a lot more meaningful. We're helping communities who can't access funding to make their dreams come true. Like, we're helping them invest, grow and thrive. So there's that synergy. And it's also the fact that we could put it in the hands of each of our employees. We can go, okay, here's 25 Kiva credits. You decide who you're going to help. It might be Rosa, it might be someone in the Philippines, it might be, someone in Brazil, and each of them very personal stories around, how they're trying to start a business, or how they want to take their business to the next level, how they're helping their community. And for us, that just really worked.
Really innovative. And I think it's very interesting. Lots of companies are talking about purpose, and I've really had to do a bit of self-reflection in the last year that perhaps, and it's so interesting you say, you must start with your employees. And as we know, many brands go wrong, that they don't connect with their employees first to understand it. And that idea that your employees get to choose that investment it sounds really fresh, Richard, and it's lovely. I mean, again, your values, I can see how it aligns to the responsive, excellence, innovative and connection. And that light bulb moment, you make it sound so easy, but it sounds so right. Did you have
I'm a gambler.
Oh.
So I'm always up for a punt. So, over the years, you kind of collect marketing philosophies, and one of my favorite at the moment, I'm sure it's going to be a favorite forever, but it keeps coming up in conversation recently. If everyone goes left, there's value in going right. So one of the plagues of the professional services industry, everyone looks at what your competitors are doing, going, we should be doing that. They're doing this conference, we should be doing that. They're doing a proposition on this, or launching a desk or a product or whatever. We should be doing that. And my default response is, if you chase your competitors, you're kind of saying you aspire to be average. That's all you'll ever be. If you're chasing everyone else, the best you will ever be is average. So go right, take a risk, take a punt, try and be different. And if it works, great. It's really worked. Double down. If it doesn't work, turn it off. Try something else. And that's probably my favorite philosophy that I've developed over the years.
It's a very apt one, isn't it? Because you're right. If you're chasing your competitors, and it's classic when I put my teaching hat on, and Shane, I'm sure you can relate to this, is you go into a company, they just want case studies from their industry, but it makes you quite myopic, and you're only ever going to be on the coattails of the people you want to beat, rather than, as you say, innovate in a completely different direction. It's a brave thing as well, Richard. You've got to have that confidence, or that gambling spirit, if you say, to say, yeah, let's do it. And I suppose also back to the marketing background of, it's test and learn as well, isn't it? It's not just blindly go right and keep going right until it is no more. It's, if it's not working, change direction again. It's an overused word on this podcast and in the last year, but to pivot into a different direction as the market and as circumstance needs.
Yeah, I also like hypotheses. So if we do this will happen, but there's value in proving that it won't, because you learn. And personally, I quite enjoy, and I think I see elements, all the way back to coursework at uni and that sort of stuff, of seeing what other industries are doing, and then trying to apply it to your world with the context you have on your particular market or your particular target audience. And I always say, if you want 10 ideas, I can give you 10 ideas right now. Like, on any subject, I'll come up with something. I'm naturally that way inclined. 8 of them would be rubbish. One of them would be good, but completely wrong timing. One of them might, okay, there's something in that, and eventually it comes out. But from a personal perspective, I just really enjoy that sort of stuff. Give me a a blank piece of paper and, you know, a room full of people to bounce ideas off, I'm quite happy.
I think that's for many of us why we get up in the morning and adore our careers in marketing and strategic thinking, because I mean it's such fun. It's you know, and I know that will never go away. That joy, if you like, of being truly creative. But then I love the sort of the scientific approach as well, of, as you say, having a hypothesis and testing it. And I think that's where you're demonstrating, Richard, if you like, the left brain and the right brain working together, as you said, those subjects you studied at A level, demonstrating both sides of the brain. But I suppose reflecting now in terms of, you know, one piece of advice to pass on to people who've perhaps been listening to this. Is there anything that you wish you'd known earlier in your career, or even looking ahead? Actually, I think this is important. What do you want to know next? How are you challenging yourself next? That might even be more interesting.
God, that's a difficult one. So in terms of one single piece of advice, I actually struggle. As I say, like over the years, you get your internal monologue, you know, your repertoire, your expression of what marketing is and what it is and how to go about things. And one of them that I'm quite happy with, I realized at a relatively early stage of my career is, you know, the value in proactively understanding how you can help your boss and your boss's boss be successful, because that's a crucial light bulb moment, which is, okay, my job is to make my boss successful. And also from a career point of view, you're doing really well if your boss's boss, certainly like in your early 20s and stuff, knows who you are, let alone that you're adding value to them and that you're helping make them successful and their organization successful. And I'm not sure it was deliberate in my early career, but I kind of ended up doing that. And I kind of attribute that to the trajectory I was on. I was appointed as CMO at 27, and I started when I was 28. Like there was a couple of months grace period. I would never have, and that's a whole story in itself. I was deeply embarrassed going to that interview, going, "What the hell am I doing here?" But I think it's those sorts of philosophies that kind of now I look back and I'm quite grateful that I developed. What's the other question, Shane, about moving forwards? What do I hope to learn?
The next, if you like, you're obviously somebody who loves and relishes challenge and learning new things. And I just wondered.
I had a conversation with Ran quite recently. And, you know, that was in a driving around Westminster, funnily enough. He was driving and he gets lost quite a lot. for a famous explorer, he gets lost quite a lot. So I was his wingman going through London, which is an experience in itself. And we began talking, and I think this is one of the cringiest moments of my life. I don't know how we got about it, but I was talking like New Year's resolutions. And the year before, I kind of counted the rum as my New Year's resolution. And like we both agreed, yeah, that's, you know, fantastic. And I think he asked, yeah, okay, what's this one, Richard? I went, well, hearing about you and your stories and stuff, I'd love to climb a mountain or something like that, or learn how to pilot a helicopter. He went, helicopter. I went, why? Like, don't you think I could do the mountain stuff? I said, Richard, you best do it to the helicopter. I thought, all right. So he can tell him. He knows whether you've got the metal for that sort of stuff or not. And you know what? He's probably right.
Well, brilliant stuff there from Richard. And certainly a man who has the mettle. Even if Ran, his friend, decided that maybe stick in the helicopter, he's certainly shown the mettle, Shane, in terms of what he's achieved and how he's gone about it so far in his career.
Absolutely. And I think one of the consistent themes that we've heard from people throughout this series who've achieved leadership very quickly in their careers is they're good people. They're good people persons. You know, they bring out the best in their team. And I think that shines through from what Richard chatted about today, is that, you know, if there's somebody better than you at it, then make sure that they're part of your team. And the value and that understanding he showed us that, you know, that you'll go far very quickly if you understand the value in helping your boss to succeed, you know. And I think that's a lesson that we sometimes forget.
Yeah, I think there's a lovely circle there, Shane, as well. As we listening to Richard, it reminds me of our first guest for this episode, David Gilbertson, who again picked up many threads, and that idea that just being confident in your own skin, that it's old leadership would have been the one that dictates. It's this new leader that recognizes you don't have to be good at everything. You're far better off as a leader if you surround yourself with good people, as we've said, bring in the experts to be experts and just help them all work together. And he's really done that well, Shane, and it's proven, isn't it, in terms of how he's managed to do that, and the same kind of people following him around that obviously recognise the value of a leader to work with him again, time and time.
Yes, and if you want to work with people that bring out the best in you, and I think that that it's much more fun to work in those sort of teams. And the other big takeaway for me, which is I think really a really great one, if everybody's going left, then go right. I learned that lesson when I visited with my children Disney World, and there's a fantastic book which I think I even recommended to you, Steve. If anybody here is visiting Disney, and it's basically the unofficial guide to Disneyland or Disney World, and it tells you to do exactly that, because psychology is you go into a theme park, everybody goes left, and this says if you go to the right, you'll cut your queues in half, and that was the essence of the book, and it tells you lots of other top tips as well, but a great mantra to have in business too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've spoiled my impending trip to the US, Shane, now, as everyone buys that book and everyone turns right. So I'll have to go left. But yeah, the principles of just not having to do the same as everyone else. And I've banged on about this for years is, we tried something once, it didn't work. Everyone else seems to be doing this. And that constant coat chasing of our competition is, well, what's our competition doing? We must follow them. And if we do that, we never really innovate out. We just are at best one step behind. I think it's a really fresh and brave, and a brave's a really good word for Richard, actually, Shane. It really struck me with he's made brave decisions from a very early age, so it would have been easy, and I'm sure many people perhaps in his shoes would have carried on with that university course and gone, well, it's being funded, I'll stick with what I've got, rather than being brave and taking a different route, so going right again rather than sticking on the left path when it came to his studies. Really, really inspiring chap.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I admire in Richard in terms of his strategic marketing nous, if you like. He was very early within B2B marketing at really understanding the importance of purpose, and he talked a little bit about that, and how he's evolved his thinking, and how it brings people internally on your team when you move into a new business, but it also helps your customers relate to you too. And I thought that was very interesting, the alliance to the charity, in fact, that and
Kiva,
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I can relate to Kiva because I've been a funder for a long time, micro funder for a very long time to them. But having that lateral thought, and as Richard articulated, that something was missing from the brand story. What can we add in that does it? Rather than, it's quite easy to go and slap your name on the side of a sports car or some kind of sporting team in some shape or form, and nothing wrong with that. But if everyone's doing it, what's the right way to go? And yeah, really nice example. I think also, Shane, you made an excellent point, inadvertently, I suppose, that because he was very computer literate, again, as a reminder to anyone from a marketing background listening in, is senior people having surrounded by good people that understand technology are really important. Richard's got those both sides. He's got that very natural understanding of behaviors, which is very important for marketing, but he's got a very solid understanding of technology, that digital space, which is obviously so important now and into the future.
And that was where, in fact, I first met Richard, because he was upskilling himself and wanted to learn about marketing automation for himself, so he could have a better level of conversation with his teams who were leading the project. And that for me stood out, because that doesn't happen very much. You do a lot of teaching, Steve, I know, but to have somebody of a very senior level come on a course about marketing automation before they bring it in, not to ask difficult questions, but so to have the comfort, if you like, that they could give support, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. It reminds me, actually, I had an industry leader at IBM who'd been in the industry marketing industry for 40 years, come along to a professional diploma, so an undergrad degree level course a number of years ago, and probably she was 25 years older than everyone else, which would have been very intimidating. But she said, look, I've got this whole pyramid of people under me. I want to be credible with them. I've got that strategic leadership, but how do I talk the language? How do I understand to make good decisions? It just shows you can always be learning, for sure. And actually, Shane, slightly through gritted teeth is the other bit. It's a bit like when we had Gemma Davis the other week, is that Richard's achieved an awful lot in quite a short time. There's an awful lot more to come from him, I'm sure, not just brilliant rums and stories with Sir Ranulph Fiennes. And who knew that Ran was such a terrible navigator when it came to driving, the world's greatest living explorer, not finding his way around London as easily as perhaps you and I might do, particularly you, Shane, given how you learned to drive. So yeah, very interesting from Richard.
Indeed. Yeah, super episode.
Yeah, fabulous. A brilliant way to wrap up a whole series of leaders and pioneers. We're not done yet, though. We'll be back next week with one final episode for this series where Shane and I pick up all of the threads, and there's been some incredible stories and threads that run through everybody that's been generous enough with their time for us to conclude series 3. In the meantime, if you're sitting in going, my goodness, this is the first episode I've ever listened to, wwlpodcast.co.uk. Go there, go search on Spotify, Apple Music, Google, Acast for What We've Learned, and you'll find us. And you'll find over 30 episodes, nearly 40 hours of stuff, of us having time to listen to lots of brilliant people like Richard. So make some time, whatever you're doing, to pop a podcast into your player and listen in to some more of What We've Learned. In the meantime, we'll be back, as I said, for that final series episode, and hopefully we'll see you very soon. Thanks, everyone.